The law travels faster than any ship. I was Elena Cade, envoy advocate of the Terran Accord, standing under the auric ribs of the Aurora Court's Arboretum Dome while a gravel-brown sun pressed heat against the glass. Our fleet a narrow line of modest hulls, and one Saint ship drifted above Gar Station, where the Ultima Compact had posted another of their gratitude tariffs. The compact demanded a percentage of every breath processed, every lumen burned, every child named under artificial skies. Surrender the tithe, they said, or be placed under corrective custody. The station's public feeds had gone monochrome at dawn and flashed a single notice inquiry suspended. Tariffs increased by 42% pending obedience. We don't kneel to invoices written in blood. The courtship of fear hung in the air like citrus rind and machine oil. I tasted copper where nerves turned my mouth into a battery. The Saint ship's arboretum smelled of wet soil, oregano, and the shy sweetness of small white blossoms I never learned to name. Beneath the glass, hydroponic brooks ticked over polished stones. Across the observation rail, our fleet mind's avatar resolved as a soft figure of starlight and paper, the shape of a woman that would never claim a name, haloed by scrolling citations. "You're vibrating again," said Sarah Bloom, my legal officer, leaning on the rail with a flex of her burned knuckles. "Breathe. Advocate. The compact brought auditors, not a firing line." "Here they're the same creature," I said. "Different heads. One mouth. Correction, our Saint ship said, voice warm as chamomile over raw froth. They brought an auditor priest, 2 method captains, and a gratitude registrar. Their hulls carry inspection ports, not torpedo hatches, but they have teeth. Teeth look best when they're counted out loud." We watched the Ultima delegation cross in skiffs from the gold-sheathed dreadnought Liturge. Their trimaran skiffs whispered through docking vapors, dragging silk-white condensation tails. Gar Station's outer ring kept pulsing a polite chime, the notice tone that announces a visitor who refuses to file a visitor notice. Static crawled on the tongues of every kid down there. And I knew that because the station's school net streamed a chorus class where the children sang through the itch. Civilian feed. A noodle stall on the lower spoke ran out of onions yesterday. The owner told her son there would be no lunch trade if the compact kept the kitchens paying on steam. A 9th-floor habitat opened every window to watch the dreadnought blot the day. And a grandmother said, "Not again. Please, not again." We took the causeway to Assembly Dock 6. The floor hummed with a frequency that made my right knee ache. An old fall from the starport years ago. Jiro, our security chief, matched my stride with predator patience, left hand resting near the cross-body clasp that held nothing but air, no weapons in the court corridors. Oko, our navigator, had put a ceremonial ribbon around his wrist, a quiet defiance that said he remembered when law was a lantern, not a leash. "Remember your line," Sarah whispered. "Not the opening argument, the moral line. I don't cross it, I don't move it. You might have to walk right along it," Jiro said, eyes on the skiff's approach. "Don't slip. The thin line only harms you if you forget your feet." Assembly Dock 6 had been dressed like a chapel for numbers. The Saint ship projected a lattice of gold wires over the air, each filament marking jurisdictional boundaries and safe speech channels. The compact skiffs opened like wet fruit and released their delegates, the auditor priests robed in matte black with hashmark embroidery. The gratitude registrar with a vibrapen gleaming. The method captains wearing collars of narrow brass plates engraved with debts paid and debts demanded. They smelled of printer's ink and wind from a place too high to breathe. "I am Auditor ordained Vel Oran," said the priest, voice passing through a sifter made of patient contempt. "This station is in arrears. The saintship is party to evasion. You are here as an accessory. This station is under the shelter of a pending inquiry," I said. "And this saintship is venue. We will confirm the facts. We will let the public hear. Public hearing is the oxygen of honest power." The priest looked up toward the auric ribs. "You call this a court. Your ship is a garden with a bell. It's a bell loud enough to register across 3 prefectures," Sarah said. "And it rings on the quorum network. Your doctrine says truth accrues weight as it is witnessed. Our doctrine," Vel Orin said, "says gratitude is the first order of law. Those who take light must return it. Those who breathe must bless those who built the breathers. Tithe is the language of reciprocity. And collars are your punctuation," I said. "They tighten when someone forgets to say thank you." He smiled. Then, as if tenderness were a perishable good, "You will state your motion." I took the center circle, tasted citrus and static, and raised my palm. "On behalf of Gar Station and the ships sheltering under its rings, I file a motion for immediate public inquiry under Article 30 contested levy with coercive instruments. We ask that all tariffs be escrowed, all sanctions suspended, and all statements recorded to the ledger arrays visible to every registered witness." "Denied," said the registrar, not looking up. "Cause insufficient. Your registrar does not grant or deny." The saintship said, "Venue does. I am venue. Motion accepted. Witness quorum met. Begin recording." "You can't bury the sun when we've sold every shovel." Vel Orin turned, slowly, like a compass in a storm. His method captains shifted the brass plates at their throats, plates ticking softly. For a breath, I felt the weight of 1,000 station eyes land on the dock. The saintship's avatar inclined her head toward the opposite dais. Hollow screens lit with streaming signatures, names, handprints, eye stamps, the crooked arcs of people who had never learned to write but learned to testify. Sarah's pen moved like a dancer. Jiro's jaw worked a thread of gum without flavor. "If you persist in theater, we will call corrective seizure," said Orin. "We will bill you for the time you waste, and then we will collect." "Call it," I said, "but do it under oath and out loud. Say it where the walls can answer back." He stepped into his circle and raised his hands as if measuring my skull for a crown. "The compact initiates corrective custody of Gar Station under Clause 94 Gratitude Default. All current and future production will be tithed at 60% until the misapprehension of debt is cured. We will appoint a steward. We will reprogram the water." "You just made a declaration that triggers Article 32, Sarah said softly. Eyes bright the way an engineer's eyes brighten when a bolt finally turns. "You posted a new rate outward on open quorum. That needs a basis." "Our basis," said the registrar, "is the accession oath sworn by the station's founders." "Show it," I said, "in full. Show me the words that cut the throats." The registrar blinked, and in that blink, I saw the smallest crack. He was used to the ritual of deference, not the friction of being asked to share. The saintship cast a declafile into the air, a scan of a vow. Yellowed, cracked, notarized by a dead star. It was beautiful and ugly, like a scar that saved a life and ruined it at once. The founders had pledged a tithe of gratitude to be accounted by honest measures, in exchange for a load of water processors and a cargo of seed. You have a copy, Vel Orin said. Your motion is moot. We have a copy, I said. And we have a question, honest measures by whose hand? By whose hand? And with which fingers left? The compact is measure. The priest said, we built the accounting. We keep the count. We do not apologize for having hands. Counting is not sovereignty. The saint ship murmured. Venue notes a second motion challenge to measurement. We propose a mirror tally under Accord Rule 12 across accounting where every debit is matched with the recorded service. Every service is matched with source expenditure. Every source expenditure is matched with consent. The nicest traps are made of transparency. Oren's gaze slid to our avatar. You propose a public book. You intend to shame us with ink. We intend, I said, near to find the truth and return costs. If you have been honest, you will be enriched with honor. If you have not, the balance will be restored to those you indebted without cause. There is no balance, Oren said. There is gratitude and ingratitude. There is collar and there is neck. Civilian feed. On the lower, spoke tram stalled between gates. A father hoisted his daughter and whispered that the ride would start again when someone brave spoke for them. In a market aisle, a woman rubbed citrus peel on her wrist to hide the smell of fear sweat because she hated the way her neighbors looked when they caught it. We'll accept your mirror tally, said the registrar unexpectedly, as if he were trying on a hat when no one looked. But the ledger is ours. Venue will hold the ledger, said the saintship. All parties will stream to a public key. You may keep a carbon copy. Your ship plays at sanctity. Oren said, this will go badly for you. It goes badly only when we pretend not to bleed. We open the book. It began as arithmetic and turned into a confession. The compact registered their shipments of processors, seed, reactor fuel, transit escorts. We registered the station's exports of refined atmosphere, ceramics, off-gas catalysts, children indentured to compact academies, the last line inked and scratched, then inked again as if someone had cried during the entry. The saint ship matched clauses with shipments, shipments with containers, containers with signatures, signatures with the cries of newborns hearing air move for the first time in a machine womb. Sarah traced the exchange of year 2, when the compact had replaced 3 water spines. You booked fair market plus gratitude premium, she said. Gratitude is not premium, Oran said. It is principal. Your principal doubled the price. Principals are not cheap. Cheap morals cost the most in the end. The first reveal came like a rip in canvas. A security escort fee had been charged for a convoy that never left a dock, with a forged pirate sighting appended. Sarah cross-linked it to a compact captain's promotion year and a priestly commendation stamped with Oren's seal. Clerical error, Oren said. Clerical profit, I answered. The second reveal slid out of a routine count. The station's gratitude education program had a completion rate of 98%. That sounded admirable until Oko pointed out the drop in available low-grav maintenance crews 6 months later and the spike in compact requisition of remedial apprentices. The gratitude classrooms were collars sewn with paper thread. Your argument, Oren said, proves the need for more guidance, not less tithe. Your guidance smells like a glove without fingers. Escalation 1 arrived on a whisper. The compact's method captain stepped aside, brass plates humming, and the dreadnought liturge energized a wide-band link. The station's power dipped as their ship requested a balancing draw. The saint ship bridged into our earbones. They are testing the collar. If the station breathes through us, They will try to tighten us into a choke. Say it out loud. I told them. If you are righteous, say it. Oran raised his hands, palms out. We will correct non-compliance by moderating your environmental flow. We will reduce your station's air and light to encourage humility. Under oath. I said, under oath. They called it humility when they took the windows. We were ready for theft, dressed as instruction. Our saintship opened a second channel and performed the first ledger maneuver, a visible return path, where any draw against station environment would divert through the compact's own posted gratuity reservoirs and record the transaction against the liturge's operating budget. The book wrote as it bled. A counter moved on the boards, notched and audible. A little bell every time an unauthorized sip occurred. 21 bells. 40. 73. The dreadnought throttled back. You cannot write on our budget, Oren said, edges scraping loose. That is ours. Your doctrine, Sarah said, says gratitude must be visible. Be grateful that we write clearly. Penalty writes itself when you turn off the lights. Civilian feed. A daycare ring kept their sleeping schedule on time because the bells made the caretaker laugh, and laughter put babies to sleep better than lullabies. A maintenance boy recording the bells used them as a metronome to fix a stuck fan. He cheered when the count hit 100 because he'd never seen the compact stop before a round number. We needed more witnesses. We needed stories to weigh the math. I asked the station speakers to open a corridor of testimony. People walked to airlocks and spoke with frost on their teeth, a glass worker who had paid tithe with a full season of finger skin, a singer whose voice was pledged to compact festivals, her throat taxed until it broke, a counselor who signed 2 teenagers into compact school and watched one return with a mark on his neck that no tutor could loosen. Your method is extortion and choir, I told Oren. You sing while you count. Counting is a song, he said softly. It keeps beings from drowning in their appetites. The saintship's avatar turned to me. You are at the edge of your line. I know. Do you trust me with the truth? Trust is only real when you might drown in it. Escalation 2 arrived as doubt. And then iron. The compact launched corrective drones to audit our relay nodes. They were neat little knives with barcodes and hymns, and each one cost more than a hospital wing. Jiro stepped forward without a weapon and took off his clasp, held it up, and said, "No tools in the corridor," as if speaking to toddlers. The drones did not care. They slipped toward a data port like moths toward a candle shaped like a rose. The saintship reached into the book because the book had become a machine and mirrored the drone's service contracts onto our quorum board. Every drone had a supplier. Every supplier had a warranty. Every warranty had a clause that voided it if the drone acted outside a certified venue. The drones crossed the venue line. The warranties voided in public. The supplier's insurance flagged an alert and cut their power. Insurance is just a slow lightning with a lawyer's face. They will escalate more, Sarah said. Her mouth tasted like old pennies. I saw it on her tongue. They always escalate the sermon when the plate stays light. And we escalate the inquiry. I said, we're not in a duel. We're in a ledger. You love that word. Jiro muttered. Not unkindly. I love what it stands for when we do it right. Civilian feed on a balcony painted with a child's planets. A teen folded paper into birds and wrote each day's tithe on their wings, then tossed them into circulation so someone would see. The air currents tattered the notes into confetti that glowed in the station's afternoon, and an old couple held hands under a gentle snow of debt. Vel Oren looked tired. It startled me. He had eyes like sedimentary rock layered. Recording. He had been the hand and the hammer. He was also, probably, The boy who once believed a hymn could fix hunger. You can't win this, he told me. Gratitude doesn't stop with one ledger. It eats the world and calls the bones righteous. Then we'll break the fork, I said, and I felt the edge of my line again. The warm, dangerous thrill of anger where law wears teeth. Anger is a lie that swears it's a compass. The Saint ship dimmed the arboretum lights to human noon. Venue calls a recess for the length of a meal. She said, all parties will eat, all parties will drink water. We will resume in 1 hour. You do not command our appetites. Oren said, it is easier to be ethical when you are not hungry, she replied, and somehow made it not gentle at all. We took our trays in the Saint ship's mess among strangers who had become a public. Oko set his ribbon on the table like a small flag. Sarah ate with her left hand and wrote with her right. Jiro drew a grid of the dock in condensation with his finger and marked the drones with dots that melted before they mattered. I chewed basil and yeast bread and thought about collars. Not as metal, but as habits we justify when they look like someone else's problem. Mid-story lore stamp. This fleet teaches by numbers and remembers by ledgers, never by collars. The tongue remembers what the wrist forgets to write. Escalation 3 arrived as we returned to the dock. The dreadnought pulsed a shriek over narrow band, a private channel that wasn't private because the Saint ship listened like a librarian listens to a late-night confession. The compact would seize the school ring first. They always took the ring with the songs because it made the rest of the station quieter. You will not, I said. You cannot prevent lawful stewardship, Orn answered. You have no guns. I have a book, a bell, and a crowd, I said, and a mirror. Our mirror maneuver widened. The Saint ship opened what she called a corridor of law, a path made of accounting. Every step the compact took toward the school ring required them to demonstrate the basis for guardianship. Basis meant the oath. The oath meant the clause. The clause meant the number. The number meant the consent. Consent meant a signature that we could not find because the founders never pledged their children's voices. The corridor closed like a well-oiled door before the first footfall. Corridors of law close when you bring no keys. Civilian feet in the school ring. A teacher put her hands on the piano and did not play. She listened to the quiet that wasn't fear anymore. In a maintenance shaft, a boy who'd used the bell count to fix a fan texted his sister, "It's working. It's working." They have to show the papers now. Your tricks disgust me, Oren said. It is unseemly to weaponize consent. It's more unseemly to ignore it, Sarah said. I stepped toward him, close enough to smell the ink in his robe. You can stand here and be counted with the people who chose to speak, or you can stand alone with receipts written by your own hands, to your own songs. He stared at the Saint ship's avatar. What will you do if we say no? What we have always done, she said. Count. Return. Publish. Count. Return. Publish. Until the hunger stops wearing a halo. The registry chimes change tone. Witness quorum broke thresholds I didn't know existed. The book grew heavier. And yet my knees felt lighter, as if gravity were a thing you could negotiate like a tariff. But there was a cost, as there always is when you drag the truth through the air. First cost, the Saint ship diverted so much capacity to the ledger corridors that her medbays lagged. A woman in labor in Habitat 12 waited 9 minutes longer than she should have for a warm surgical hand. She named her child Patience and didn't know why tears stung her eyes differently when the bell rang. Second cost, a shuttle on a service loop clipped an unmapped geometry from our public projections and lost a thruster vane. It didn't kill anyone, But the pilot could not stop his hands from shaking when he looked at the heat-buckled metal and thought about how close he'd flown to a number. The price of decency is paid in small scars. We were not saints. We were citizens in a room where morality could slip like sweat from a palm and still leave a print. I turned to Oren again. You claimed the collar as punctuation. I claim the period at the end of this sentence. You do not decide when language stops, he said. But there was less flint in it. The public does, said the saintship gently, and planted an invisible gavel on the air. Venue, Sarah said, requesting a corridor of law gambit to compel the adversary to state their method. Full articulation, without euphemism. On the record, granted. Make them say what they do without the perfume. Oren's jaw worked. He was a clever man who had lived on a diet of decorated words. The gratitude doctrine, he said finally, is the principle by which beings acknowledge dependence upon structures they did not build. It corrects the lie of self-sufficiency. It demands symbols of thanks that carry weight, so that thanks is more than breath. And the collar, I asked. The collar is a mnemonic, he said, almost gently. It teaches the throat where humility lives. Say the next part, I said. It closes, he whispered. When someone forgets the song that chokes you is not a hymn. Sarah's pen paused. Jiro's gum stopped moving. Oko tied his ribbon tighter. The saint ship projected those words across the quorum lattice in letters big enough to cast shadows. Now we had method. Now we needed remedy. The mirror ledger had returned some costs in the moment, but the larger balance remained a weight. We could not unring the old bells. We could only weigh them fairly, then decide what to do with the scrap. Proposal, I said, voice steady as the tide. We calculate the delta between lawful exchange and coerced levy from accession to present. We convert that delta into restitution owed by compact repositories, draw from their public gratuity funds, and distribute to station accounts with receipts visible. We then revoke compact privilege to initiate collars without a verified consent audit filed with venue. We file the precedent on the public book. This is not a court. Oren said weakly, it is better. I said, it is a public. Publics bite harder than judges when they're hungry. He looked toward the dreadnought. I could feel the signal traffic prickle across my skin like cold rain. He was requesting permission to withdraw, to regroup, to come back with prettier words and sharper plates. But the quorum was loud, and the book was loud. And the saintship was louder still because she did not raise her voice. She just let everyone else speak. Venue, she said, prepares to post a provisional ruling to the ledger. All parties may object. I object, Oran said immediately. On what basis? On the basis of disorder. You mean disobedience, I said. And you mean disobedience to you. Disobedience is just memory with a backbone. The arboretum lights cooled a fraction. A breeze moved through leaves like a hand remembering a face. I saw the reflection of the book's golden threads in Orain's eyes and wondered what he saw: snares, or instruments, or something holier that I would never understand. You will call this victory, he said. You will call it reform. You will call it justice and wash your hands in the basin of consensus. But you have tools. We had tools. Tools make anyone capable of righteousness. That's the point. I said, make it possible. Make it visible. Make it durable. We stood there for a breath, longer than comfort. And then the saintship flicked her fingers only once, and the court beacon above the dais cooled from white to pale gold. The fragrance of oregano sharpened, as if the plant had heard a secret it liked better than light. A public ledger entry blinked, waiting for a verdict. I drew a breath that tasted like lemon and iron and said the quiet line in my head one more time before I said anything out loud. We are not here to win. We are here to settle and to set things that will not be easily unsettled again. Here is what I believe, I said softly, knowing the quorum would carry it to every ear that wanted it. We built languages to keep power honest. We built ledgers to keep gratitude clean. We built mirrors because it is so easy to forget the shape of your own mouth while you eat. Today we saw your doctrine without its jewelry. Today we wrote down what it costs. If you choose to keep wearing it, you will carry that cost alone. The book is open and the bell is still ringing. Oran did not bow, but he set his hands on his plates as if the brass might help his fingers remember how to be human. The gratitude registrar watched the quorum numbers like a medic counts breaths. Our saintship's avatar folded her paper star hands and let the silence pick a side. The first objections arrived as murmurs carried by lemon-scented air, a market clerk who feared stock collapse, a pipe fitter who feared a night without light, a teacher who feared victory would taste like vengeance and leave their mouths dry. Victory that tastes like ash is just a different loss. We broke the silence with arithmetic that felt like rainfall. Sarah posted the Delta model line by line, not as a slab of numbers, but as a trail of stones anyone could walk. Inputs glowed with a blue sheen. Coercions flared amber. Legitimate exchanges rang with a clean silver note you could almost hear. Oko mapped the years to the station's festivals. Jiro overlaid repair cycles so no one would confuse a fare surcharge for a garrote. Make the path so clear even your enemies don't trip. Civilian feed. A baker in Spoke 3 held up yesterday's ledger print beside today's projection, whispering the difference to her apprentice as if the numbers were constellations. A boy in a scooter chair sketched the bell count pattern on his knee and grinned when the model matched his hunch that gratitude premiums always spike the day after a drought drill. You intend to strip us, Oran said quietly. You intend to make us an example. I intend to make us a precedent. I said each word placed like a cup on a shelf. Precedents are examples ironed flat, with no room for collars to hide inside the folds. Precedent is just a warning written before the fire. The dreadnought answered by turning polite. The liturgist's frames cooled. The method captain spoke in measured tones about continuity and compassion, about how abrupt corrections break people harder than gentle thefts do. The registrar suggested a phased refund. Sarah nodded like a violinist hearing a wrong note played sweetly. Phasing is reasonable, she said. And I knew she would hang the phase on hooks no one could bend. Reasonable doesn't mean you get to keep the knife. We built the phase out of clocks and lists. First, we froze new tithe initiations and stripped the gratitude premium from all open invoices. Second, we scheduled retroactive returns from compact gratuity reserves at a fixed daily percentage that would complete in 90 days, slow enough to avoid collapse, fast enough to feel like relief. Third, we published the ban no throat devices deployed without a consent audit filed with Venue and verified by 2 unrelated bodies. Bans only bite if you fit them with teeth. Civilian feed in a narrow kitchen. A girl set 90 dried orange peels in a line on her sill to mark the days the refunds would walk home. In a small synagogue of engineers, an elder wrote the ban in chalk on a steel door and left it there when she found she liked how the words looked beside the scratches from old spanner slips. Oran finally stepped closer, the air around his robe carrying the warm dust smell of stored books. Where do you put the gratitude? Advocate, he asked. You have made a machine to count coldly. Where do you set thanks so it does not blow away? In the choices we make public, I said. In the repairs we do after we put down the brass, give thanks by fixing something someone else broke. The Saint Ship's avatar turned her head, listening to a chorus no one else could hear. A petition arrives, she said, from Compact Chapter 19, 3 prefectures outward. They request the Aurora Court transmit our corridor model and consent audit patterns. They have been asked to steward 4 frontier rings. They want a different hymn. Songs change when you share the sheet music. The registrar twitched like a struck wire. You can't syndicate Venue. Venue is not a franchise. The Saint Ship replied, It is a promise of light. The method captains whispered, I tasted metal brighter than copper, more like the taste you get when you lick a battery to see if it lives, which my mother told me not to do, and which I did anyway. Twice. You're losing your doctrine. I told Orin, not gloating, almost sorry, not because we humiliated you, because you built it on a pillar that cracks when you weigh it. Pride makes bad concrete when it's asked to carry people. He looked at the school ring on the projection. If we accept, you will call us reformed. If we refuse, you will call us criminals. If you accept, I said, we will call you neighbors with a new ledger. If you refuse, the book will call you what you choose to be, and it will not even need a name. Let the page speak so your throat doesn't have to bleed. The Saint Ship prepared the posting ritual. The court beacon brightened, then cooled to herald a decision that would become a bruise where a blade used to be. Sarah stepped to the dais and read the restitution schedule with a cadence like a catechism. Jiro took witness count, eyes flicking as if he were guarding a threshold with nothing but his patience. Oko pinged the school ring. Their music teacher answered with a simple triad. Clear as glass. Music goes straight where arguments need roads. We hit the 3rd loop of our mystery reveal payoff pattern almost by accident, except there are no accidents in a room where the walls record. A freight audit in year 7 had been marked Divine Waiver in 3 separate entries. Sarah followed the ribbon to a hidden sub-account named Benedictions. It paid stipends to auditor priests who shouldered public anger during corrections. Orin didn't flinch. Hidden accounts are just shadows who think they're priests. He said, You will say bribery. We will say hazard compensation. None of it matters. The doctrine still stands. The ungrateful must be schooled. The ungrateful must be protected from you, I said. And maybe from us when we get clever. Cleverness without mercy is just a slower collar. The Saint Ship flagged a conflict. Our medbays are full. She said, we can either run the posting now or wait 30 minutes to stabilize a surgical theater. Wait immediately, even as another part of me almost screamed to finish it now. Show strength. Seal the bell. We are not starving for ink. Jiro exhaled like a laugh that was trying not to be. That's your line. He said, Good. Lines matter most when no one is watching you hold them. Civilian feed in Habitat 12. The new mother stroked Patience's hair with a finger still webbed by EKG glue. In a tram. A mechanic took the bell rhythm off her wrist, where she'd been tapping it, and drummed a lullaby against the handrail for a toddler who had decided the floor was lava. We waited. Orin waited with us. Which taught me something about him I couldn't name. He drank water when Sarah handed him a glass, and for a heartbeat he closed his eyes the way pilgrims do when they reach a milepost that matters. Water tastes different when you haven't bought it with fear. The posting resumed. The Saint Ship drove the mirror threads into a shape I'd never seen, a split prism that sent the decision along 4 corridors at once. Quorum network. Compact chapter nodes. A public archive on the fringe. And the station's school ring, where the children's choir had requested the first copy. Each thread burned a different color on our boards. And together they made a white that felt like a promise, electing to be honest, even when no one clapped. Promises are just deadlines for decency. Before you strike the key. Oren said, "Hear this, I do not believe you have saved them. Law cannot save anyone. It can only injure the hands that would drown them and hope the swimmer learns to kick. I'll take that," I said. "And I'll keep my hands ready to be injured. Hands that heal learn to live with splinters." The saintship asked for objections. The registrar raised a timid hand. "We object to the ban's permanence. Emergencies require instruments. Emergencies require courage and transparency," Sarah said. "Not jewelry that strangles." The method captain said nothing. They were watching the prism with faces that looked like people discovering the word neighbor had always included them. And maybe that was better than any argument we could manufacture. Discovery feels like humility when you're not being pushed. We posted the order. The ledger pulsed once like a heart stunned by good news. Then the numbers walked. Compact gratuity reserves ticked downward in transparent steps, each step annotated with a recipient and a reason. Station accounts brightened like windows at dusk. A hush passed through the Arboretum dome and into the station's bones. Payments are just apologies that decided to get specific. Civilian feed. The noodle stall got onions and gave free bowls to the first 5 arrivals. Then wrote the receipt number on a scrap of napkin and pinned it above the fryer like a saint card. A teenager bought new bearings for his scooter chair wheels and typed the invoice ID next to a smiley face. A choir director opened the consent audit template and added a line at the top, "We will teach you where your no lives. You have broken our method." "Advocate," Oren said, "not accusing, not forgiving. You have broken it cleanly." "We have not broken gratitude," I said. "We have broken theft that called itself prayer. Prayer without choice is just noise in a collard." He turned to his captains. "Stand down," he said. "Transmit the order to chapter. Close benedictions. Phase refunds. And file the consent audits when you take any stewardship at all. Remove the plates." One captain touched his narrow brass collar like a lover touches a goodbye. He unclasped it. The sound it made against the deck was indecently small. The loudest sounds are sometimes just whispers we finally hear. The saintship hummed a minor chord. "Venue notes the immediate compliance," she said. "Venue also notes a petition from Gar Station to establish a permanent quorum satellite and corridor of law school in the school ring." "Approved," I said, before anyone else could form a sentence. "We'll teach measuring by building, not by bragging. Build what you count so you don't forget why numbers matter." A final objection came from an unexpected corner. A woman with seed oil under her nails and tattoos of broken tools on her forearms. "What about the children who were taken?" she asked. "What about the years they already sang to hunger? You cannot refund a throat." "You can hire it," Sarah said gently. "You can pay them to sing whatever they want, wherever they want. And you can shut up and listen." She looked at me. "We can also establish a recovery fund. Not just debts, but possibilities. Hope is a budget line if you decide it is." We wrote it on the book and earmarked a chunk of our own reserves. It stung because we were not rich and because generosity hurts most when it is honest and not performance. Jiro's eyebrows said as much. Oko nodded, like someone folding a flag. "Costs that hurt are the only ones you remember to honor." Orion watched the recovery fund appear with a face as unreadable as a planet seen from 2 systems over. "I will send you names," he said, "not to force your kindness, but because if I ask, perhaps I can keep one good thing from slipping through my fingers. Send them." I said, "We'll print them on the wall in the school." Names on walls are just ledgers that learn to breathe. The dreadnought unbent into its new shape slowly. like a proud man learning how to carry groceries without making it look like surrender. The compact chapter nodes pinged acknowledgments that sounded like doors opening in weather that had been too cold for too long. The station's markets loosened. The glass workers returned to their benches and found their hands steadier than yesterday. Steady hands build better than shaken hearts can dream. We wrote the precedent lock with deliberate care. Precedent gratitude, premiums prescribed, measurable consideration only, restitution mechanisms mandatory, consent audits required for any stewardship, callers suspended pending verified consent, violations auto-escalate to public venue, franchise of venue to be shared on request, effect privileges rescinded, policy revoked across subscribed chapters, enforceable by quorum beacon and mirrored accounts. The saintship posted it as a separate entry with a red seal only she could make. The seal was not mystical. It was a hash of witness signatures and 3 school children's drawings of bells. Seals work best when they look like something a child would trust. We were almost done, and then we weren't. A small anger found its way back into the dock like a crow that never misses a funeral. A method captain, not the one who took off his collar. The other stepped past his line and raised a device that was not a weapon. Not exactly, unless you consider levers to be the oldest weapons ever made. He thumbed a trigger, and a clamp in the liturgist's ventral hanger snapped shut on Gar Station's emergency air manifold. The saint ship hissed through our bones. They are trying to steal a last breath. Stealing the last breath is how cowards say goodbye. I nearly ran. Sarah caught my sleeve. Jiro moved without flourish. A human door. Oko's ribbon flashed once on his wrist. A signal to a friend in a control room who loved him. Venue, I said, and my voice carried like a thrown rope. Initiate a corridor of law emergency. All mechanical interventions must present a basis within 2 breaths or reverse by default. The clamp's control reported corrective custody. Our mirror threw it back against the chapter's gratuity account. Triple weighted for malice. The lever flicked open because the insurer didn't like the smell of malice on a public board. Insurers hate bad odors when they're spelled out loud. The captain looked at Oran. He didn't say sorry. He said nothing at all, which is how men choose to be remembered when their stories refuse to make them heroes. Oran took his plates from his hands. The noise they made on the floor this time was louder. Noises get louder when everyone agrees what they mean. Civilian feed in a maintenance gallery. The boy with the bell metronome laughed and then cried. Not because he was scared, but because he saw a lever open by a sentence, and it felt like magic he could learn. In the choir room, the teacher finally played, and the children sang 4 notes that sounded like windows opening. We closed the session. The saintship dimmed the arboretum to human evening. The oregano smelled a little drunk. The brooks ticked like a room full of polite clocks. Oren tucked his hands into empty sleeves and nodded to me. Not friendly. Not a threat. Something that might grow into either if we were careless. Carelessness is how peace learns to fear its shadow. He said, I still believe in gratitude. So do I. I said, that's why we made it stop hurting. The dreadnought withdrew along a curve that had been a trajectory of hunger and was now a route of obligations with receipts. The liturgist's nameplate caught the station lamps and looked suddenly very small. Big names shrink when the invoice comes due. Sarah slumped into a chair that had not been there a moment ago and would probably never be there again because the saint ship made furniture like a good friend makes tea. Jiro went to check the corridors with the same care he'd give a sleeping dog. Oko sat on the floor and tied his ribbon into a knot that sailors swear is lucky. We did it, Sarah said, then immediately shook her head like someone walking back from a cliff. We did the part where we don't make it worse. Keep me honest tomorrow. I told her, today, tomorrow, and whatever the day after calls itself. Tomorrow is where today hides its unfinished work. The Saint Ship put her paper hands flat on the rail beside me. You burned, she said. You kept your line. You bled for the medbays, I answered, and took a child's name. She named herself. The ship said. And it was true in a way that didn't require metaphysics. We walked the dock once more, as if to collect footprints so we could recognize them later if we found ourselves lost. The public ledger entry blinked one last time and then settled into confirmed with a gentle gravity that made my teeth ache in a good way. I stood under the auric ribs, the lemon metal taste fading, the oregano settling, and spoke to no one and to the public that had carried us. I don't know if law saves anyone. I know it can keep powerful hands from claiming a throat belongs to them. I know it can write down a promise and tie it to a bell. And I know the sound of that bell can make cowards hesitate and make tired people stand up a little straighter. I know that gratitude without consent is theft with a hymn. I know we will pay again for this choice, in patience and small scars. And I know I will ask for more patience than I ever thought I could afford. The court beacon cooled. A thin ribbon of steam unwound from its crown and vanished. We will keep the bell clean.